morning. Welcome to Barcelona and welcome to this session, which has this very interesting and inspiring title, which is Reinventing the Energy Market. So I think that it is an aesthetic session and with a very, a key issue. So I think that we really need to reinvent the energy market, both in Europe, but also in our case in Catalonia. Energy is one of the, and I think that you share with me that this is one of the most important issues or strategic issues for the future, the present and the future of every economy and society. So, and we feel in Catalonia that we are just at the end of the corridor. We need to move to another energy scenario, and we need to reinvent many things. So thank you for being here and for helping us, helping the audience to think about this new energy market that should be reinvented. Okay, let's start with a brief presentation. We will follow the order that you can see in the screen. So we will start with Jean-Marie Bemtgen, which is Policy Officer at the European Commission Energy Directorate. I think he's a project officer responsible for new energy technologies, innovation and research coordination at the Energy Directorate. And in his work, he focuses on new energy technologies, innovation and clean coal. Then we will continue with Isabel Pinto from Finland, although this name is not a Finnish name. So, but Isabel is she's a research team leader in the VTT Technical Research Center in Finland, which is a globally networked multi-technological applied research organization. And you have over 18 years of experience working in international RTD projects. Okay. Yeah? Okay. So we hope to learn from you. Okay. Then we will continue with Jeroen Westendorp from Groningen, from the Netherlands. Welcome. We have, I am the director of the Advisory Council for Sustainable Development of Catalonia, and we have good contacts with the National Council, the National Advisory Council of Netherlands. So we have colleagues in the Netherlands. So welcome, especially welcome. Let me give you a brief information about Jeroen, which he develops and implements together with businesses and knowledge institutions new smart city concepts and projects in Groningen. And you were one of the driving forces behind the iCapital Award nominations of the city of Groningen. Okay. Okay. Finally, the next one is Paula Kirk from the United Kingdom. She's the associate director of the group leader Cities, Energy and Climate Change Consulting in Arup Group. Paula, you are leading the Arup's input to the Mayor of London's Decentralized Energy Project Delivery Unit, which is a 3.3 million euros program to bring 70 million pounds of projects to market by 2015. So we are also interested in your experience. And finally, but not least, Tim Pryce. And you come from you are the head of public sector at the Carbon Trust in the United Kingdom. So I think that many of you know Carbon Trust, but you can also explain something about your organization.
As much as I can in 12 minutes.
Okay, we have 12, yeah, so you can use 1 minute or two to explain what is Carbon Trust. And you have played a key role in defining the financial as well as the environmental case for carbon reduction from your organization. So welcome. I speak too fast, I'm sorry, but we are always late. We have 3 minutes for the presentation, 12 minutes for each speaker, and then we will have some minutes to share with you questions, comments, and everything. So I always the bad guy, always remembering you that we are out of time. sorry, it's my fault. I'm sorry, but I will do this. Okay. So let's start with you, with Jean-Marie. Okay.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me to this nice place. I'm very proud when I go to this exhibition and when I see at which level Smart Cities has achieved today. It is really impressive. Many people in this room here know me from my past work, so many people in this room here believe that I am the inventor of Smart Cities in the European Commission. I must confess one thing, that is not true. It was not me, it was my wife. I only made it possible with the very complex legal procedures and tried to get as much money as possible for this activity. And today I can say that it is quite impressive what we did since the last 10 or 12 years, with the very first start 2002 when we had the first initiative called Concerto, which is the predecessor. Today we have just made a name change. First it was Smart Cities and now Smart Cities and Communities. And I could speak for about 12 hours on that subject, but the chairman only gives me 12 minutes and I should speak about another subject, which is equally important. Reinventing the energy market. The subject for me of smart cities and the energy markets are very, very strongly linked. When I went through the hall and I looked at exhibitions, I had the feeling that energy was forgotten in the smart cities for about 80% of the people showing their presentations outside. I'm very surprised about that because energy is extremely expensive. Energy is a gigantic part of the whole bill of every single municipality. And energy is the only area where a city can invest and have an attractive return on investment if done correctly. If a city invests in transport, for example, it is much, much more difficult to show a clear and direct and a clean return on investment than if you go for the energy, because at the end of the day, the city has to pay the energy bill, which is at the end summed up by euros. Very good integrator of many complex activities. I read here in this session something very surprising for me. Technology innovation, and for those who don't know me, I'm in this business now since 27 years in Brussels, so I should know a little bit about technology innovation, can struggle to reach maturity because of a lack of subsidies, regulatory frameworks, or business models. When I read this sentence, for me, it reads as if the world were upside down. Lack of subsidies, for me, is by far the very last thing you want to have when you do technology innovation. Regulatory framework is a necessary evil. And then business models comes third. If you want to have a good investment plan and a good return on investment without a business model, please tell me how you want to have this miracle happen. You need the business model first. If you don't have a good business model, forget all the rest. If people come and speak to us and say that in Brussels we don't pay enough subsidies, my first answer is very clearly the following. If you have a bad business model, forget it, go home and do your homework. If you have a real good business model and you look how it works, you will find out that getting the first 50% of the money needed for investment is very easy. From 50 to 80%, it is difficult. From 80 to 90%, it is extremely difficult. And from 90 to 100%, it is impossible. And that is exactly where I want our programs to be positioned, on the last 10%. In some areas, we have seen that we were just paying 2 or 3% of a project. But with a domino effect, the whole project was taking place. With a multiplication factor of 10, 20, 50. And that's exactly what you want to achieve. That's where you work. Though that sounds very theoretical now for you, I'll give you one example. Today, in the energy transformation that every country has to do over the next years, because all your heads of state and government have signed up for the European energy policy for 2020 and now also for 2030 a few weeks ago, where we want to reduce the CO2 emissions very dramatically to 40%, we want to increase the renewables very dramatically, and we want to increase energy efficiency very dramatically. You can achieve that only if you have a total new approach to the energy system. With a classical, conventional approach, you will fail and you will never have an interesting business model. Some people now believe that they have found the aspirin for all the headaches in the energy. The new buzzword has become energy storage. We also have activities on energy storage. But something is strange there. Whenever I speak to the big manufacturers of pumped hydro storage systems, for example, they all tell me there is no business case. Forget it. In the beginning, when I heard it, I was suspicious. But then I was rather shocked when I heard that in Germany and in Austria, the first pumped hydro systems have been closed. They have been stopped because they lost money. The old plants, 40, 50 years old, totally written off. Only operating costs. No capex anymore. No writing off of the plant. It is there, it is running, and you lose money. While at the same time, other people want to invest billions to build new ones. Something is weird in the market. The reason why they had to be closed is because their storage systems were based on a business model dating from the 60s and 70s, where there was a huge amount of coal-fired power stations, huge amount of nuclear, and the electricity at night was over-abandoned. Those plants were running in a constant mode, and during the night, the pumped hydro systems, they were pumping up water. They were paying very low price for the kilowatt hour, and during daytime, they were selling kilowatt hours at a very high price. So you buy when it's cheap, you sell when it's expensive, you have a shift of 12 hours in between. Very simple business model. It was right in those days. Today we have renewables. They are fluctuating, they are variable, they are not dispatchable, they don't bring flexibility, but the contrary. And the energy market of today has a very high volatility, changes within minutes, it's traded every 15 minutes, different price, and we see quite often prices at zero level or at negative costs. So how do you want to make money if you buy cheap electricity and when you want to sell it, it has a negative price? You must go bankrupt. Impossible. Now imagine you would be very, very rich. You would have inherited it from Steve Jobs or somebody else. You would have some billions on your bank account you would like to invest. I would now come and talk to you and say, listen, I want to build a new pumped hydro system because I want to provide security, I want to provide flexibility, I want to provide quality of the electricity grid, and at the same time I am rewarded exclusively on selling kilowatt hours. Please give me your money. I need 10 to 15 years for the permitting, I need 10 to 15 years for the construction, so you will see not a single cent in the next 20 to 25 years. And then I will reimburse your money depending on the energy market from 2030 to 2080. Is there anybody in the room here voluntary to play this business model? Nobody raises their hand, good. I would be surprised. Now imagine I come and see you and I say, okay, I want to do exactly the same system, but I need 1 week for the permitting, and I need 6 months for the construction of the same unit. Only difference is I base it on batteries. I place those batteries there where they are needed, not there where the mountains are. And I can start reimbursing you still by the end of 2015, where I have some certainty of the money. And I don't want to be reimbursed by selling kilowatt hours, but I also want to sell primary, secondary, and tertiary services for the electricity grid. I want to sell security, and I get money for the security because I found some right customers. And I want to sell also quality of the grid. And I made a good deal with the DSO on that. I believe you would be much more inclined to give me your money than with the previous scenario. That's what I mean. We have to reinvent an energy market where people trade services. Our market needs services. They need flexibility. So we have to reward flexibility. We need dynamics and ramping up time. So I need to be rewarded for ramping up time. I'm selling you security. So please pay me for the security. What is the value of security? We need new business models. The good news is that in 2014 we had the latest call for proposals in our energy program, where I insisted it was compulsory to combine innovative technologies with innovative business models, with an assessment of the legal framework and an assessment of the regulatory framework. That was the right approach, as we have seen in the results, and I can assure you that we will continue with this approach for the next few years, where everything that is on research and demonstration must be responsibilized for the market, making sure that you find the market. The bad news is I cannot deliver to you the solution for a very simple reason. The market is different in every country. The market is different in every region, and it's varying with time. It's varying with situations. It is varying, for example, here in Spain when we go to Gran Canaria, where there's a touristic season or not. So there's not a one-size-fits-all situation. It's like in a smart city. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So I expect that you will come and discuss with us on how to reinvent the market from a business point of view. And then we will look into the regulatory aspects. And then we will look how to fix the subsidies and not the upside down. Thank you very much for listening to me. 11 seconds early.
Now it's time for Isabel. Please, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So, as our chair presented, I'm coming from VTT, the Technical Research Center of Finland, where we do mostly research. But today I'm actually wearing the hat of coordinator of EPOS, which is not only done with VTT, but together with 8 partners from different countries in Europe, which I'm going to present in the end, and co-funded by European Commission. And if this works, yes, thank you. And as the previous speaker presented very well, we are approaching the smart cities by the energy management point of view, for the impact not only on the climate change, but also on resource efficiency, including financial efficiency and save of money. So that's our point of view here. So if it change, so the EPOS itself, the project, it's targeting the development of ICT applications in order to provide energy positive neighborhoods. So it's not zero neighborhoods or off-grid neighborhoods. It's energy positive neighborhoods as defined as the average in 1 year of the energy production is bigger than the consumption. And there's trade-offs with the grids. And there's management and load shifting and balancing. The project itself is approaching different angles, including the development of business models concepts, because the systems develops what we call a neighborhood energy management system, or NEMS, which brings new actors to the marketplace. Like facility managements, we will have the district facility managers or operators. So there's new business models on the place and the trade-offs with the grid. Today, what I'm going to present to you is mostly focus only on this part here, which is interfaces for the performance monitoring. So I'll show you only small parts of the project, but which is bigger than that. So these interfaces, before I go overwhelming with lots of pretty pictures, it's good to show what are they for. So they are used by these facility managers at the building level, district level. They are used to fault detection. They are used to show key performance indicators to support decision making, and they will be easily available also to the end user tenants. But today I'm not going on there. So I'm showing this. This is going to develop also inside the project to that, but most of the interfaces I'm showing today are targeting the operators at the neighborhood and building level. And they are being developed in different supports. And also we are testing to develop into the gaming environment, or known in the ICT world by the serious gaming, because we really believe that it's going to be the interfaces of the future, and that's what we are doing here, because this is a research project, so we will see it in the market in the future. But it's also reality. So we are actually, the next image I'm going to show, they are done based on a really demonstration site. So in the project, we have a demonstration site in German. We have a demonstration site near Bilbao, which is going to be more virtual, in Aspagena, in Spain, and one in Finland, in Helsinki, which is this lovely picture that the buildings are literally built on top of the sea. Lovely place to live. So the next images are models based on the building information models from the architects when they built this site. And we are demonstrating, so it's operating, there are tenants living there, and we are demonstrating all the automation platform and ICT platform in this site as well. So here it shows that we passed the building information models to the Unity platform. This is a gaming environment that the operator can literally walk through the site, go to the sea, go inside the buildings. But what we are showing here is like a visualization of the key performance indicators. In this case, the energy, could be other indicators, so that the facility manager or the district manager can receive alarms, can take decisions, can act, or the system. So here, we don't go inside or the streets, but this is a game environment that can be operated in an iPad, in the tablet, in the phone, in the computer, or just even with a PlayStation remote if one really wants to walk through it. There's no privacy issues here, so tenants don't receive this to go inside each other's apartments, or so that's everything is covered here. But to show that key performance indicators, we need some algorithms behind. So there's the building information model. It's not only a pretty visualization, but brings information we need. And behind that's all the key performance indicators calculated based on algorithms. So here, we are showing at the building level, also to the facility manager, how is it integrating this building information model, the information coming from the building automation. So it's what we call BIM and BACS systems. This is based on the real time, and it can be connected as well with the energy management system at the district level. So it takes a while to build, and it's the basic information as we have on the district, but now it indicates inside the building per room. Are the rooms above certain specific temperatures that can raise an alarm? So again, I'm using temperatures and energy here, but the same can be used with the indoor air environment levels or some other KPIs as soon as now it connects with many presentations these days on the Internet of Things and what kind of sensors information we have. But here we are focused mostly on the energy because our target is the energy efficiency. That was based on real time. But then when we go to the energy management level at the district, we need forecast of energy consumption. This is an example that we are using at the building level, which is then extrapolated to the district level in order to forecast. It's based on weather forecast, and models at the building level, and it forecasts based on historical data and real-time data and future data, which is then connected, which can be then connected with the energy management and trading. This is available online, by the way, on VTT website. Another application which connects then with this energy building consumption forecast, it's the energy brokering tool, which is being developed within the project by a Finnish SME. And the tool, it's like to brokering, like I said, this is not a zero district, this is a positive district. So of course it implicates trade-offs with the grid. And that's what the tool uses. It uses the consumption forecast. At the Nordic markets, normally the price of the energy is actually fixed for 24 hours, so it can use that information, and then it does the trade-off. Now, this is not being demonstrated in the site. It's ready. It's one of the case technology is ready, but there's other socioeconomic barriers. So in the case of the site, there's contracts done already with the utilities, with the energy, so we cannot demonstrate this. So as I said, just to finish, I'm not speaking only by VTT today. I'm speaking by partners that are represented here from 4 different countries and by the co-funded by the European Commission as others. And if you would like to know more of these and similar other 3 projects, just come to visit us in our booth next to ERA. Thank you. I think I'll be on time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing with you your experience, Isabel. Now it's time for Jeroen from Groningen. So please, the floor is yours.
I was just telling Paula that I have 3 minutes left of your time, but I will not use it. Don't worry anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeroen Westendorp. I come from the nice city of Groningen. You all know Groningen, of course, because you love it. No, that's the case. Anyway, I will tell you more about it. Groningen is in the top of the Netherlands. It's a very nice city. It's 200,000 inhabitants, and it's the 7th city in the Netherlands almost. And it's a very nice city to live in. Here you see some basic facts. I will not tell you more about it because I would like you to tell you today more about our people approach. People are very important in cities. We don't build cities anymore top down. We build it bottom up. We build it based on people's needs. And it's interesting to see that energy is also can be regarded from a view that people want to have their own control of their energy system. And that's why we developed a smart energy project. Many projects going on, many research going on, many business are going on. Partly because of the big on-land gas field in Groningen, which makes us very rich, by the way, as the Netherlands. But I would like to tell you more about our energy approach. First of all, I would like to take you back a bit in the future, in the history. Sorry. Here we see a petroleum lamp and a coal stove. That used to light our houses and used to heat up our houses. It's only 60 years ago, just to remember. Then we brought electricity to our homes, we brought gas to our homes, and what happened, that everything turned into a service. You just turn on the lights by putting a switch, you just turn up the heater to heat your house, which is great. It's very safe, and it's very convenient for everybody. But the thing is, we lost track of our energy. We're not noticing our uses anymore. We're not noticing our consumption anymore. So the whole people perspective has been going away. Because back in the days of the petroleum lamp and the coal stove, you need to put in coal every time you want to heat up your house. Or you need to put in petroleum to light up your house. But now it's just a switch. So Groningen is saying if we can put back the people perspective, we have a new market. And I will explain this during this presentation. First of all, I would like to raise a question. How many of you know your yearly energy bill? Okay. And how many of you receive information on the energy bill more than 1 time a year? 3, 4, 5, 6 people. It's amazing. It's so much money and you only get this information maybe one time a year. It's crazy in my opinion. If you want to change that, you have to bring back the energy information to the people. And that's what we do. Smart cities on energy, and Jean-Marie said it, it's a main important theme, not only for a city as their own consumption, but also the consumption from our people, from our businesses, from our institutions. And if we want to change it, I think we need information. And that's what Smart Cities is all about, bringing information to the consumer, not only at the city level, but back to the people. So we all know that the energy market is changing with more renewables coming to the market. I'm not saying, I will not explain this, but it's happening. It's happening everywhere, by big investments by companies, but also by people investment for solar panels on the roof. I had a person saying, well, Jeroen, I can make more money if I put solar panels on my roof than I can make money if I put my money on the bank. And it's true. You can earn more money nowadays if you put solar panels on your roof instead of putting money on the bank. So the energy market is changing. We're getting a new system. It's not central anymore. It will become a decentralized system. And again, we probably need storage. I will not talk about technologies today. So there will be other people's and other sessions talking about technologies. We'll talk about the people perspectives in this new, tomorrow-based, decentralized system. This is basically a nice picture, but it's also our vision. And if you look to the heart of our vision, you see our smart energy citizens. We feel that the citizens, the energy consumers should be in the basis, is in the middle of our system. And then you can build a market around it. We need smart people which can invent new services. We need data. We need to find out, develop new services. We need startups which can build valuable business cases. We need to connect to global markets. We need living labs to test it. And above all, we need people who want to accept and test and use this service. So, putting people in power. I think that's the right word to say. If we want to reinvent our energy market, we need to put people in power. And that's what Groningen is doing. This is Henk. Henk lives in the city of Groningen. He's a huge football fan, by the way. And what he did is the following. He bought a solar panel on the roof of our football stadium. This solar stadium panel, this solar plant is crowdfunded. It's totally owned by the football fans. They get revenues from it, but they also support the club. This is the local energy corporation. And this energy corporation is locally owned by people from the city of Groningen. They want to take action because they want to build a sustainable society. So they made their own energy company. Not using energy from the big companies anymore, they built their own energy company. And it's happening nowadays in our society, that people want to take control again of their energy market. And it's based on business models. Of course, it's a new market, so there are some market failures. But people want to change the energy market. They're not accepting the big companies building brown coal power plants and building some 2 or 3 windmills. No, they want to take their own energy into their hands. We have a very nice project that's called Power Matching City. And Power Matching City is based on the fact that people can control their own energy consumption and share their energy with their neighbors. Actually, they're selling their energy to the neighbors, which is not, by the way, accepted by Dutch law. And even in the European Union, I think we have to change this. If you want a new energy market, you as a consumer must be able to sell your energy, a surplus of energy, to the neighbor at a good market price at the time they need it. So this Power Matching City is only 42 households, but it's the largest integrated smart grid in the world. That's strange, only 42 households. Why is that? Because there are a lot of constraints in the market still. If I can sell my surplus of energy in a market, delivering it to my neighbor where he can switch on his dishwasher at the time there's a surplus of energy, that would be very interesting. And if I could choose between using the energy at the right moment when it's there, and I can choose if I only want green energy, which becomes very interesting, then new market models pick up and will pop up. So we're now trying to upgrade this system. This system is based on different technologies. I will not go into detail because I think you have other sessions where we can listen to technologies. But the whole system is based on integration. So it's not one single technology, it's integration of technologies. And I think if you look to the smart city context, again, it's about integration of different technologies. But again, we say the people perspective is very important. You have to put the consumer in control. You have to put people in power. We're still not there. If you look to the European smart grid market or smart energy market, we're still at the phase of service demonstration. And if I look to Europe, I see a lot of smart grid projects, maybe 100 consumers or maybe 300 consumers, maybe 500 consumers. But why not integrate all these projects and trying to set up a new market? Because then we can really not only invent, but also invest in these technologies together with businesses. If I look to the smart grid market, I see three opportunities. First of all, there's the EU regulation that everybody will get a smart meter. It will be rolled out throughout Europe. And in the Netherlands, it's already happening. I know for Austria is, for example, ready to roll out smart meters. I know in Spain, they're working on it. Everybody will have a smart meter. If everybody has a smart meter, what will happen? There will be a lot of data from energy consumption in an energy data cloud, which is the nice, what is it, Volk? I don't know, a cloud. Yes, it's a cloud. So it's a lot of data going into the cloud about energy. What if we could build a European energy cloud? I think that's very interesting to see, because data can deliver new services. I see three opportunities there. And we'd like to invest that in Groningen, investigate that. We also would like to implement this together with others. First, there's the route based on this data for energy consumption and changing behavior. We have to provide insight to change behavior. That's the first step. The second step is if we can really validate and evaluate this data and consumption pattern. So we should add value to this pattern. If we can, maybe Bitcoins is a measure, I don't know, but if we can really put money in this data flow, is the consumption flow, then we can really build new market models. That's the second, but it's coming because of the smart meter. And thirdly, we probably have a very nice market because of demand-side management. It would take a bit more of technology, but those three new markets will be there. First of all, I don't have a personal app yet which connects to my smart meter, which says, oh, you're using 2 kilowatts an hour right now. It's not there, but it will be there, and it will be there in 1 year or maybe 2 years. So I see a lot of market opportunities, and Groningen would like to be in the middle of these developments. And why? Because we like the people. And we like the people, and our people would like to invest in our sustainable future. And I think it's the same with your city. If you look to this city, we have very nice people as well. There are very nice people as well, and they would like to invest in a sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeroen. Thank you, Jeroen. I fully agree that we need to put people in the center, and we need to give the people the power of deciding the energy they want and how they manage energy. And I fully agree with you that we need to change regulation. I don't know in the Netherlands, but I can promise you that we have some problems here. So it's a key issue. So I agree with you. So Paula, it's your time. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Paula Kirk, so I lead the Energy and Climate Change team at Arup. For those who haven't heard of it, it's a company-owned engineering and design firm. And what I'm talking about today, we've been selected to work with the Mayor of London to deliver the Decentralised Energy Programme. So it's a 3-year funded programme. And in terms of reinventing the energy market, what I'm going to talk about is mostly district heating. And heat in the UK is unregulated, as it is in a lot of different markets. So it's quite difficult to try and reinvent a market that isn't yet regulated. So some of the key challenges in terms of doing this, I was actually very pleased to hear from colleagues in Brussels that lack of subsidies potentially shouldn't be at the top of this list. I would absolutely agree with that. And I have to say I'm probably going to skip over that and just talk about the next 2 points, which is regulatory frameworks and business models. Certainly our experience is that those two are the most important elements of delivering energy projects in the market. So the Decentralised Energy Delivery Unit, DEPDU for short, we all have to have an acronym. So this has been running since 2011. And as mentioned, it's a €3 million ELENA funded programme looking to bring district heating projects in London to the market. So why this was set up in London? Back in 2005, the Mayor of London didn't actually have any powers, didn't have any authority in terms of energy or energy supply. So they made a decision to put energy at the heart of the London Plan. So the London Plan sets out for spatial zonal development across the whole of London what all of the statutory planning requirements are for any new development happening in London. And there was a clause, a policy in the London Plan that stated that 25% of London's energy supply had to be generated decentralised, had to be decentralised energy by 2025. So this programme is set up to try and reinvigorate and try and actually catalyse that market for decentralised energy in London. So this is effectively about identifying those opportunities for decentralised energy. It's fantastic to have a policy, to have a framework in place, but we met with utility companies and developers and they said, well, the policy is there, we know that we have to do it, but how do we do it? Where's the information? We're being asked to connect to district heating networks, we're being asked to generate decentralised energy. How do we do it? Can you give us some information about where to start? And who needs to be involved? So what different stakeholders have to be involved in that process? So the DEPDU programme was set up to provide that technical, commercial and financial support. And it was aimed primarily at the local authorities. So there are 33 local authorities within London. And they all have to adhere to the policy framework of the London Plan. So the first thing that we did was actually help them to write policies at the local level that supported and fitted into this policy framework of requiring connection to district heating. So what I'm just going to talk through today, in terms of delivering any energy project, starting off with policy development, setting the regulatory framework, and then for district heating, heat mapping and energy master planning. Again, understanding where do we need the heat and how are we actually going to, what are the concepts behind delivering that heat and actually delivering the energy project. Then comes the commercial strategy and the feasibility study, so the technical aspects and actually understanding the commercial case, very much the business case. Then over on the right, you can see the business plan and the business case. And again, I was very pleased to hear from Brussels that this is absolutely one of the most important elements of delivering an energy project. I'm going to talk later on about some of the funding sources available. We know that the funds exist, and they're actually struggling to give money. They're actually struggling to hand out and to finance a lot of these projects because the business cases they're not developed well enough to be able to fit with the criteria of that funding. So they're the two areas that I'm going to focus on today. So this is the map. This is the map of the decentralised energy opportunities in London. So we worked with all 33 of the local authorities and actually did detailed heat mapping for every one of them. So the purple dots that you can see on here are specific areas of opportunity. And this map is actually written into the revised version of the London Plan. So they've actually this is developed as a GIS map as well. It's an interactive map that's online. If you look up the londonheatmap.org, you'll find a copy of this map. It has different layers of energy supply points, energy demand, and potential networks. If you can see the red and the yellow are the existing networks, so you can see there's not a lot of them, and the red is the proposed district heating network, so we still have a long way to go. This is an example of when you actually click on the GIS map, this is the level of detail that's on there. So it's quite a busy slide, but this is all of the different layers of GIS information on there. So anybody looking to do any kind of development in London is required through the planning framework to access this map and to identify where their site fits within the decentralised energy map of London. And they have to design the heating provision for that new development to fit in with the requirements already set out here. So again, this looks at the heat load points to indicate the size of the demand and contour heat demands as well. This, like I mentioned, there's also heat loads, so the different kinds of buildings, and this is initially led by local authorities because of the ability of the public sector to act as heat loads. They're anchor heat loads, and they're often able to sign up to longer term contracts as well to secure and guarantee heat demand over a longer period of time. It also includes planned networks as well, so that you can see where the opportunities are for connecting into a planned district heating network. So there's quite a lot of outputs. The programme is just about to finish its 3 years. Earlier this year, the London Heat Network Manual was launched. So this is technical and commercial guidance for all of the developments happening. What we were seeing is that heat networks were being built next to each other, but they weren't being designed so that they could actually connect strategically. So you had the same company developing 2 networks, and their temperature differentials were not the same. So you had some very basic technical issues that were delaying and adding additional cost because you had to add in additional pipes, additional heat pumps, and those additional costs that were entirely unnecessarily. So this heat manual sets out very basic guidelines for how to design the network so that they can all connect strategically across London. In terms of commercial delivery structures, so again, looking at developing the business plan, again, this was a key barrier we found in terms of really good projects. Who actually delivers the project? So for district heating, the question is who owns the generation plant, who owns the distribution pipework, and then who deals with the customers in terms of the billing. A lot of the local authorities or utility companies, they want to do some element of that, but not necessarily all of it. So we broke it down into very simple categories of whether or not who are the customers and who owns the assets. And using this very basic matrix, it's simple to see what type of energy service company is the most appropriate for delivering the different types of district heating projects. Now, I mentioned funding at the beginning. The London Energy Efficiency Fund is actually a £90 million fund that was set up in 2012. It has actually struggled to release funds because of the difficulties of projects actually not putting forward a strong enough business case. This money is available to public sector, so to civic buildings, museums, art galleries. The Tate actually in London has just drawn down a substantial amount of funding. They're recapturing the heat wasted from their generation plant and feeding it back into connected buildings across their sites. So again, the 4 basic stages of identifying the business case and the business plan for these projects. The initial project screening, so Arup we're working with the London Green Fund to do the technical due diligence, so assessing whether or not these projects are technically sound and whether or not the commercial structures are investable for the projects. I'll skip through. Just to give a summary of some of the outcomes then of the programme to date. So 40 million is already invested in decentralised energy schemes as a result of this programme. That's got a lifetime carbon savings of over 80,000 tonnes. And there's an additional £300 million worth of projects in the pipeline. These projects take a minimum of 2 years from concept through to delivery, so there's quite a long time scale involved in delivering the projects. As a result of this, there's a national rollout of this programme, and the UK government have called it the Heat Network Delivery Unit. So they've taken learning from a lot of the work that we've done in London, and they've invested on a national scale. There's £12 million has just been invested nationally to help other local authorities to replicate what has been done in London. And overall, the idea of the programme was to catalyse I mentioned at the start the 25% of London's energy to be generated by decentralised energy. This programme would obviously only deliver a small fraction of that. But on an annual basis, the Mayor of London does a review and monitors the policy framework that's been set up in the London Plan. So the requirements for connection to district heating and the requirements for low carbon that are set out in the planning regulation. And they're actually able to quantify what the savings are and what the level of investment is as a result of that planning policy. So overall, there's 17 million has been invested in actual combined heat and power plant. 103 million invested in the heat network infrastructure, and 13 million invested in photovoltaic panels. And what that's resulted in overall is 36% more than the required standard building regulations in the UK. So it does go to show that these policies can be delivered on a city scale. When we first proposed this back in 2005, everyone said that we were crazy and that developers couldn't do it. This very much proves that it can be done and that the developers and the utility companies can work together to achieve these savings. I'm going to finish there as I'm running out of time, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paula. And now, the floor is yours.
Just work this out first. Great. Thank you very much for inviting me here to speak to you today. My name is Tim Pryce, and I head up the Carbon Trust's work with public sector organisations, and that very much includes city governments and municipalities. And I'm going to talk briefly at quite a high level, but based on quite a lot of experience we've got of working with city governments at the Carbon Trust on how city governments can act to enable and develop low carbon and sustainable cities. A very, very brief introduction to the Carbon Trust, because I know I have very little time. We were set up by the UK government about 13 years ago with a mission to accelerate the move to a sustainable low-carbon economy. We're a not-for-profit company, and we do that in a whole range of different ways. If you want to find out more about that, then please do feel free to come and ask me afterwards. So I'm going to talk about two things over the next 12 minutes or so. I'm going to talk about the business case for sustainable cities. So why should city governments care about low-carbon cities? And then secondly, governance structures to help city governments effect that transition. So in other words, how and what should they be doing to make this transition happen? The picture, if you're wondering, is a picture of the proposed new east-west cycle highway in London. That picture is currently a big 6-lane dual carriageway. It's very difficult to cross. It's very difficult to walk along. It's on the embankment next door to the Thames. And the proposal is for it in 10 years' time to look like that and to be much more of a mixed-use highway. So the business case, why should cities act? Why should they be caring about this? And I think the first thing I would wish to say about this is something that's very dear to my heart. I studied meteorology and climatology at both the University of Oxford and the University of Reading, is climate change. This is a graphic taken from the latest Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, or IPCC report. If you haven't had a look at the summary for policymakers, which was published a couple of weeks ago, I would urge you to have a look. There's lots of very good information in there. What this is essentially showing you is on your left, it's showing you the projected likely changes in global temperature and global precipitation under an aggressive mitigation scenario. So on the left is what happens if we cut emissions. On the right is what happens by the late 21st century, by 60, 70 years' time, if we don't cut emissions. And you can see there's a very big difference between those two scenarios. And you can see that if we don't cut emissions on the right, most land areas around the world are looking at temperature increases over the present day of around 4 to 7 degrees Celsius, which is a huge amount. And that's similar to the temperature difference, say, between London and Barcelona. And there's similar kind of precipitation changes as well. And this will have a big impact for cities in terms of the services they deliver, the buildings they need to put up, the way they plan, the way that public transport works, the way that their industries and economies work. Just one example of that, this is taken from the OECD, an estimation of the assets in cities at risk of flooding under climate change. The column there is present day, the column on the far right is the likely scenario in the 2070s, again in the absence of measures to cut carbon emissions. And you can see that the numbers on the right are around about 100 times higher than they are in the present day. And that's the kind of risk that city governments need to be aware of in planning for the future. Another factor city governments need to be aware of is national and international climate legislation. At the Carbon Trust, we expect national and international climate legislation overall to grow steadily over the coming years as the need to tackle climate change becomes ever more urgent. There's a whole range of things already going on in many different countries around the world, and you probably heard in the news last week about the reciprocal deal between the United States and China for those two countries to cap their emissions. And given that we're now, I think for the first time a couple of years ago, over 50% of the world's population now live in cities, and it's through cities that this kind of legislation will need to be enacted. Another part of the business case for city governments is that saving carbon saves money. Essentially, this is quite well known. This is a cost curve taken from McKinsey. All the green measures on your left there are cost effective. They save more money than they cost to implement. Cities that implement these kinds of measures will have a lower cost base, and they will be more economically competitive on a global stage. And a lot of the measures there, water heating, air conditioning, insulation improvements, they apply in buildings, and buildings are primarily located in cities, so it's very relevant for cities. And then finally, something that's been the subject of increasing interest over the past few years is the idea of stranded assets. And stranded assets are a very real risk for cities. This is just one example, which is the risk of stranded assets in terms of fossil fuels. All of these, this graph is essentially showing you the amount of coal and oil and natural gas that's sitting on company and national balance sheets at the minute. And then in green, it's showing you the amount that can be burned if we're to stick within a 2-degree temperature change limit globally. And you can see there's a lot of oil, particularly a lot of coal, that's sitting on balance sheets that is unable to be burned if we are to stick within a 2-degree limit. And there are other assets in cities that have this kind of devaluation or redundancy risk under a climate change scenario. It could apply to transport assets, it could apply to low-density car-based cities, and that's something else I think city governments need to be very aware of. So what can city governments do about this? What kind of priorities should they be having? I can only be very high level in the time I've got available. One thing we think they need to do is define a clear goal as to where they're going. What is a sustainable low-carbon city? And I've just put up a few suggestions there. It's by no means comprehensive. Cities need to be looking at cost effectiveness. They need to be looking at quality of life. They need to be looking at global climate change mitigation targets. A good example of a city in the UK that's done that and has set up a program and a brand and is using this to compete on the global stage is Bristol. Bristol is, for those of you who don't know, the European Green Capital in 2015, and we at the Carbon Trust are doing a lot of work with Bristol on things like their green digital economy and on the kind of things that Paula was talking about, district heating schemes. And they've got a very good website out about the kind of thing they're doing. And I think from our experience of working with cities and city governments at the Carbon Trust, the one thing I would urge any cities to do is, first of all, to lead by example, to get your own house in order before you look at area-wide carbon reduction in your wider city region. It's very important to have a plan for your Scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions, for the energy use in your own buildings, your own estate, and your own street lighting. And it's very important to have the senior governance and targets in place in your organisation to make material cuts in those emissions. Another thing that cities are very well placed to do, and this links very well with the whole Smart Cities agenda, we've heard quite a bit about this already from other speakers, is gather and report on energy consumption data and on carbon data around their cities. This is one example of the kind of data I think that cities should be gathering, which is on carbon emissions in their wider city regions. There's a whole range of guidance out there as to how cities can report on that data once they've gathered it, which is a vital thing to do, because if you don't report it and monitor it, you can't affect it and change it. Probably the most useful is a recently published greenhouse gas protocol guidance on community scale greenhouse gas emissions, which is very relevant to reporting carbon in cities. Again, if you want to know more about that, I've got very limited time. Please do feel free to come and ask me afterwards. And then I think having got that data, having understood where the biggest areas of carbon emissions are from around a city and around an urban area, cities have great agency and great influence to be able to change and drive down those emissions. And cities need to look across the board to look at both where the big emissions are, but also at what they can change and what they can influence. And these are some suggestions of things that we know that cities are able to do around their areas, things like engaging schools, engaging businesses, acting as a test bed for new policies and new initiatives and new apps and new ways of managing energy. They can influence a lot through their procurement, and they have a lot of power as well through setting up integrated transport authorities. And a very good example of that is Transport for London, which integrates all the transport in the city and makes it much easier for people using different modes of public transport to interchange. And this is just an example. It's quite a well-known link between urban density and the carbon emissions per capita in cities. And this is the kind of thing that city governments can influence through their planning. They can send their cities either to one end of this curve or the other. On the left, you've got very low density cities that have very high energy use for transport per capita. And on the right, you've got higher density cities with far lower energy use. Another thing that city governments, I think, need to be focusing on, as well as climate change mitigation, is climate change adaptation. City governments are going to need to both mitigate and adapt in response to climate change. If you don't know, London is a city that is at very high risk of flooding, primarily tidal flooding, but also other kinds of surface water runoff and river flooding as well. And there's a whole network of flood defences already in place in London, various tidal barrages, the best known of which is the Thames barrier there on the bottom left, and about 150 kilometres of flood defence walls along the Thames as well. And one of the things we know pretty much for certain in London is that all of this is going to need to be upgraded by the year 2100 if we are going to keep London safe from flooding. And there's a whole range of options around how that's done. The Thames barrier, just to give you one statistic, it's been shut about 170 times since it was opened in the early 1980s. And about 50 of those times, so about a third of those times, were last winter alone, to give you some idea of how much more often the Thames barrier is needed to be shut. A further thing we think cities should be doing is looking at enabling low carbon infrastructure finance. I think there's a role for cities in terms of de-risking finance provision, sitting alongside private capital and making that private capital feel happier about lending in. But I think the big role that cities have is building investable projects. And again, we've heard more about that today. Building projects that investors feel comfortable to invest in, that have certainty of return over a good long period of time, and setting planning policies and procedures so that investors know the projects will be viable for a good long period of time as well. And making sure that all project revenue streams are captured. That's a very important thing often to do in terms of implementing sustainable city projects. I'm very nearly out of time, so I'm just going to move on very briefly just to mention the Carbon Trust Low Carbon Cities programme. This is something we've been running for 6 or 7 years now. We've run it with a few cities in the UK, Leeds and Bristol, for example. We're now running it with Petaling Jaya in Malaysia, a couple of states in Mexico, and we've run it with a city in China as well. And this helps city governments to do all the kind of stuff I've just been talking about, both to get their own house in order, but also to develop an area-wide carbon reduction plan. That's just one example. I was in Malaysia about 3 weeks ago helping Petaling Jaya, which is a big city next door to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, to set up a low-carbon city plan there. Again, if you want to know more about that, please do feel free to come and ask me afterwards, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Catalonia, the region which Barcelona is fully aware of the importance of local action for mitigating and for the adaptation to climate change. And for instance, here in the Barcelona metropolitan area is working hard on this issue. Also, we have a lot of local municipalities, authorities are involved in the European Covenant of Mayors for climate change. So it's a good issue, and I hope that very soon you will be able to add Catalonia as a region as one of the territories with a specific regulation on climate change, because the government is working now on a draft law on mitigation and adaptation to climate change. So we will inform you. So I'm sorry, I apologize, but we have only 9 minutes in order to share visions with the audience. So do we have a microphone for the audience in case of... Okay, so if you want to... This one? Okay. So if you have some questions, you can go to this microphone just in the middle of the room. Okay, please, if you say your name and your organization, please.
Okay, hi, I'm Jeroen and I study energy engineering at the KU Leuven and KTH in Stockholm. And I have one remark and a question. My remark is that in Belgium we have a smart grid project called Linear of 250 families, so I'm sorry, but the one in Groningen is not the biggest. And then my question is about business models. With all these smart grids, you see that the energy systems are more and more evolving in multi-agent networks, where every smart appliances or renewable generation interacts with each other in a much more decentralized way. So do you see the same trend in business models? So where instead of now we have the big generation companies who deal themselves, the business models top down, do you see the same trend coming in the business models of this bottom-up approach?
It's work. Yes, there are new business models coming up, but I totally agree with you because they're building power plants which have a lifetime cost for 40 years, something like that, and they're determining the market price for electricity. The strange thing is, if you look through the time of Volt, back to the Volt where he invested electricity, right? The market model hasn't changed. It's all about delivering energy to the homes. And yesterday I was in a session with the day before yesterday, there was a session also about energy storage, and my vice mayor was in. We should change this business model. I think the new business model would not be about delivering energy anymore, but maybe it's about saving energy or storing energy. So the meter system has to go away. But there will be new business models. I'm totally sure of that, because we all want a different energy market. We want people to become more a producer instead of a consumer, right? So we need to award this production of locally produced energy. So there will be new market models, I'm sure, and I'm sure my friend beside me will help us to build this legal framework where prosumers can get more value out of this production. You want to react on that as well?
Well, I can only confirm what you said. The future will be radically different from what we have seen in the past. And there are many things that are happening. On the one side, we have very fast penetration of renewables into the market. Large scale, medium scale, and small scale. Some countries faster than others. And it's true, Belgium is not the leader in renewable energy, but I come from Luxembourg, they are worse, so I can make comparative assessments. On the other side, we also see here the smart cities and smart technologies in the exhibition. One thing is for sure, our cars have become smart over the last 10 years. Today, when I buy the smallest city car, it has more sensors and detectors than sometimes the whole city in the energy field. The cars, they are smart. The transport is not yet smart. That will come as well. Our homes will also become smart. Last year, I visited the city of Vienna. They have shown me their district heating system with 25 sensors for temperature and 10 sensors for pressure. When I see in a city car, I have a few thousand sensors in the car. So something is wrong there. Our homes will become smart. The smart meter is not a finality. It is just a necessary evil to go much further. We will have smart meters, and then smart appliances, and then smart homes, and then smart grids, and then smart districts, and then smart cities. That will come. And we cannot have this evolution, this unavoidable evolution. We cannot sit in the corner like Charlie Brown or Calimero and start crying about the good old times of the past. We have to adapt. We have to move fast. And the business models need to be changed very, very fast. The only problem is that up to now, everybody agrees with me on the principle, but nobody up to now has delivered to me a real smart business model. Everything which I have seen was past business model plus 10%. We need new brains, innovative economists, very young people who have not been spoiled by our models, that deliver us a model where we can make big money. When I've seen the speech of Tim, everything was correct. But I would have preferred that you would not defend your case. Why you do the work? I think that is given. That is done. you always will have 10-20% of non-believers. They will never change their mind. Don't make a policy for those. Make a policy for the big majority of the intelligent people who have understood there is a big change going on, and then propose solutions. Propose solutions that are cheap. Propose solutions where the citizen wins, where industry wins, where the cities win. Go to a proactive approach. I think the slides that you have are really perfect, but I would never use such slides anymore. Since 5 years. For me, it is done. For the European Commission, this is done. So I'm more optimist than you.
Okay. Okay.
Good.
So let's move to the last question. I also agree that we need smart citizens in the center of this, the smart cities, smart houses, everything. We need smart people able to understand how to manage and thinking about the future. So last question.
Is it on? Oh, thank you. My name is Pascal Hardy. I run a small company in France on circular economy. And my question goes to Mr. Westendorp. How do you cope with legal aspects? You said before that selling electricity from one individual to another wasn't permitted. And how can you still develop your project? The reason of my question is that I come from a country where we have one unique energy provider who is installing meters that are not compatible with smart grid nowadays because they don't want. And we are trying to start projects like yours, and we are trying to find legal angles to develop those projects.
Yes, interesting question. By the way, we tackled it. Differently, because you can also have your smart meter at a different level. So we now have a smart meter in our households, right? Because you are a consumer. So we said this is a community of consumers, and we start measuring for the electricity provider, this company of yours, at the transformation station. So the whole grid behind the transformation station becomes more or less a private, a community grid. So the grid issue from delivering back and forth to this grid is moved up to a different level. That's the first approach in this project. The second approach is that we more or less made a partner of the energy company, and the grid operator has become a partner in our project. They know that their business will be dead in 10 years or maybe 15 years if they will not innovate. And I'm sorry to hear that this company in France is not willing to apply smart meters. I think then you have to stand up and go on strike and say, hey, we want this smart meter because we want to be in power. And I know in France you have good opportunities to do that because, right? So just stand up and speak. And right, it's true. It's true. But I think the whole thing about energy transition, it's true. And if you be honest, then we need our energy big utilities also nowadays in our business models. Because energy transition is not one big leap in one big step into the future. It's about small steps. So we need those parties also to be involved.
If I can just add to that as well, I would say that sometimes you need to bend the law to change the law. And very much the case we found in London. Some of the local authorities, there's actually a law, national law, dating back to the early 1950s, that says that local authorities can't generate and sell heat and electricity. We have several local authorities doing it, so they've had to set up separate companies in order to be able to do that. And because they've done that, the Ofgem, the national regulator, has now actually, they're calling it License Light. So it's a small license that's going to be available for decentralized energy generators in order for them to be able to do that legally. Now, again, that takes probably 2 to 3 years to even get them to listen. But I would strongly advise to try and find ways to bend the law to make sure that it actually has to change.
And adding one thing of that, Brussels is saying if you want to change a market, you are able to experiment. And I know Brussels is only 200 kilometers from Paris, but still Paris has to listen to Brussels in certain ways. So maybe you should drive a bit further and speak up and say, hey, this is what we want to do. Because Brussels is willing to experiment to change this energy market.
Okay. And so
More to come.
so now I think that we need to reinvent the present energy market, look into the future, and we need to think about future in order to think about which energy policies and business models must be implemented. So thank you very much. We could continue for hours discussing about this issue, but time is time. So thank you, Jean-Marie, Isabel, Jeroen, Paula, and Tim for sharing with us your visions. And you know that you will be always welcome to Barcelona, so please, thank you very much. And thank you to all of you for attending the session.